Hello and welcome back to the Dante in a Year podcast. My name is Danny Fitzpatrick. Let's continue with Dante's Paradiso, Canto 28. After the one who in paradises my mind had opened the truth against the present light of miserable mortals, as he who's illumined from behind sees the doubled flame in a mirror before he has it in sight or in thought, and wheels about to see if the glass tells him the truth, and sees that it accords with it as a note with its meter. So my memory records I did, regarding those lovely eyes with which love had formed the cord to snare me. And as I turned myself back and was touched of that which appears in that volume, when one well sets the eye on its gyre, I saw a point that rayed forth so sharp a light that the sight which it fires must shut for its harsh piercing. And such a star as here appears smallest would appear a moon, placed with it as a star is collocated with star. Perhaps it would appear as near as a halo circling the light that paints it when the vapor that bears it is thickest, the circle of flame that wheeled about the point so swiftly that it would have outdone that mover that circles the world most quickly. And this was circumscribed by another, and that by a third, and the third then by the fourth by the fifth, and then the fifth by the sixth. The seventh followed above, so spread now with largesse that the messenger of Juno and Tyre would be unable to contain its span. So the eighth and the ninth, and each one moved more slowly, the more distant it was in number from the first. And that one had the flame most sincere, which stood least distant from the prime spark, because, I believe, it was most in truth of it. My lady, who saw me suspended in hard care, said, "From that point depend the heavens and all of nature. Admire that circle that's most conjoined to it, and know that its movement is so swift for the inflamed love with which it's punctured." And I to her, "If the world were placed with the order which I see in these wheels, I'd have been sated by that you've proposed. But in the sensible world one's able to see how much more divine are the wheels which are most remote from the center. Thus, if my desire would have its end in this miracle, this angelic temple which has love and light alone for confines, I must yet hear how the exemplum and the copy don't share the same mode, for in myself I consider this in vain. If your digits are insufficient for such a knot, it's no marvel, so madded is it made in never being attempted." Thus my lady. Then she said, "Hold tight to that I'll say, if you'd be sated, and make yourself more subtle and complete. The corporal circles are ample and constrained, according to the greater or lesser power that distends itself through all their parts. Greater bounty wills to give greater being takes greater body, if its parts are equally complete. Thus this that seizes all the other universe with itself corresponds to the circle that most loves and most knows, so that, if you enclose your measure in the power, not in the appearance, of the substances which appear to you rounds, you'll see a marvelous consequence of greater to more and of minor to less, in each heaven to its intelligence. As the hemispheres of the air remain splendid and serene when Boreas breathes of that more lenient cheek, such that the roughness that first disturbed is purged and resolved, so that the sky smiles with the loveliness of its every province. Thus was I made, once my lady provided me of her clear response, and the truth could be seen as a star in the sky. And once her words rested, no otherwise than as iron that boils gives forth sparks, these circles sparked. Every spark followed its fire, and they were such that their number reached thousands more swiftly than the doubling of squares. I heard Hosanna chanted chorus to the fixed point that holds them to their where, and ever will, in those ever therein. And she who saw the doubtful thought in my mind said, "The first circles have shown you seraphs and cherubim. Thus swiftly they seek their aims, setting themselves as they can to resemble the point, which they can as their seeing is sublime. These other loves who wheel about thus are called thrones of the divine aspect, in whom the first third terminates. And you ought to know that all have delight as much as their sight plumbs the depth of the truth in which intellect is quiet. Here it can be seen how the blessed being founds itself in the art that sees, not in that which loves, which seconds sight. And in sight is merit measured, that which grace and good will bring to birth. So it proceeds, grade on grade. The other third, which so germinates in this sempiternal spring which the nocturnal ram can't despoil, perpetually pray hosannas with 3 melodies, which sound in 3 orders of happiness in which they're threed. In this hierarchy are other divinities, first dominations and then virtues. The third order is of the powers. Then in the 2 penultimate triumphs wheel principalities and archangels. The last is of the angelic games. These orders all marvel on high, and are bound below so that all are drawn and all draw toward God. And Dionysius, to contemplate these orders, set himself with such desire that he named them and distinguished them as I. But Gregory then divided them himself, so that, as quickly as he spread his eyes in this heaven, he laughed at himself in the same. And if such secret truth were proffered of a mortal on earth, I wish you'd not marvel, for he who saw it here above discovered it to him, with so much else of the truth of these gyres. Thanks for joining me for another episode of the Dante in a Year podcast. See you next time for Dante's Paradiso, Canto 29.